Hello everyone, and welcome to yet another episode of Q Positive. Today we're standing at the Heritage Village in Dubai. It's one of the scenic places around Dubai and a lot of tourists come up here. But today our real attraction is actually underground. This area is on top of Al Ghubaiba metro station, one of the 49 metro stations that make up the world's longest driverless rapid transit rail network, the Dubai Metro. This metro has been the lifeline of people across Dubai since 2008, and it's a proud part of the city. Trains have been a very integral part of our history. The locomotive is such an impactful invention that without it, the world today would have looked very much different. The locomotive is derived from the Latin portmanteau locus motivus. That means place, locus of motion, motivus. So that is how the locomotive got its name. And the very first locomotive was actually made by Richard Trevithick in the year 1804. It was a steam locomotive and it was used to carry supplies in England. The locomotive in the early days competed with other rail networks such as human-powered, rail-powered, horse-powered, and the cable-based as well as gravitationally powered networks. So there were a lot of competition for the locomotive. George Stephenson was an early supporter of the locomotive, and he proved the efficiency of a locomotive in an actual race. The Rainhill trials were held at Merseyside, Liverpool in October 1829 in order to prove which locomotive is the best and to choose an engine for the Liverpool and Manchester Railway, the world's first intercity railway. So there were many competitors, but Rocket, the steam locomotive built by George and Robert Stephenson, was the only engine to complete the entire race. All the other locomotives, they either got stuck or they had some technical problems. Rocket was consistent and it completed the entire race, and it won the contract for the railway for the Stephensons. And this race actually put the locomotive on the map for historical purposes. Another race that happened in that time was in the Americas. Thump, the first American steam locomotive to work on a common carrier railroad, competed with a local stagecoach service on August 1830. The race is actually remembered for the fact that America's first railroad actually lost to a horse. What exactly happened? The fact is that Thump was way more powerful than the horse, and he surged to an early lead. But what exactly happened? A belt that was in the engine actually slipped off, and this made the engine lose its power. And so by the time they could fix that, the horse had surged to an unassailable lead, and America's first locomotive lost to a horse. Many such exhibitions and races were held around the world during this time in order to demonstrate the newfangled tech and also to advertise for railroads built by private companies. In India, the first private railway transported granite for dam constructions across the Godavari River. The first passenger train in India, however, happened elsewhere. Great Indian Peninsular Railways rolled out its first ever passenger service in 1853 between what is then known as Bombay and Thane. So that was the start of Great Indian Peninsular Railways, which today is known as the Indian Railways, the world's third largest rail network and also the largest employer in India. It has gone ahead of the Indian Army to become the 8th largest employment provider worldwide. There's a lot of history about trains in India, and it's too big for a video like this. But if you do want to learn more, you can always visit the National Rail Museum in New Delhi. So you can find a lot of facts that train aficionados will like. And while you're at it, you can always use a train safari and ride on India's smallest functional steam engine. Dubbed 1:8 because of its aspect ratio with that of an actual locomotive, it gives out a safari every Sunday, and you can always use that safari to explore the whole museum and enjoy the ride. Over the years, rail networks have expanded around the world. They've also become quite ubiquitous with winding tracks throughout all sorts of terrain. Australia, the oddball continent, boasts of having an incredible record. The world's longest stretch of straight track is found in Australia. It runs from Kalgoorlie to Port Augusta across Australia, and it's across the desert. In Australia, this track has about 297 miles of straight railway, which is aptly called as the Long Straight. Today, we are all about creating new records and doing the unthinkable. This can be in various shapes, sizes, or even names. For example, in April 2019, Chennai Central was renamed as Purachitalaivar Dr. M.G. Ramachandran Central Railway Station. This name is the longest name for any train station across India. However, it's just one letter shy of having the world's longest name for a train station. That title belongs to this Welsh railway station, and it has a very complicated name. I can't even pronounce it. Okay, so this name is pronounced as Lanfair Pwil Gwyn Gil Go Gur Yish Wern Drob Will Land Taisaleo Go Go Gosh. That's quite a mouthful. The amazing thing is that this name is not nonsense. It's not a nonsense name. This name has a meaning. It roughly translates to St. Mary's Church in the hollow of the White Hazel near a rapid whirlpool and the Church of St. Cecilio near the Red Cave. Pretty creative way to express it, don't you think? Rail technology has exploded throughout the 20th century, leading to the sector's involvement in both world wars. Did you know that one of the failures, the reason why one of the most important missions of World War II, that's Operation Barbarossa, failed, is because of the fact that Germany and Russia had two different railway gauges? Yes, because when Germany decided to invade Russia in 1941 in Operation Barbarossa, German engineers struggled to change the gauges from German to Russian. Russia operated a narrower gauge than Germany. The reason for the difference in gauges is due to the fact that earlier railways were privatized before nationalization. So therefore, each railway used to have its own standard gauge. So when they were integrated, there were problems in gauge width, etc. So that is one of the unique reasons why the Germans lost Operation Barbarossa. Privatization in India has led to an enormous scandal, with many people protesting for and against the move. But did you know that over 120 years ago, a private railway line has been established in India that still works today? Yes, originally created to transfer cotton from Yavatmal to Achalpur in Amravati district of Maharashtra, the Shakuntala Railway is owned by Killick Nixon until today, even after Indian Railways nationalized itself in 1952. The strange thing is that there's only 7 people working here. These 7 people operate this railway line from Yavatmal to Achalpur on a daily basis and providing service. The railway line is private for as long as the eye can see. However, its days are now numbered because of government nationalization. There are a lot of oddities associated with the Indian railways. For example, most of us would think that both platforms of one station would be named the same, right? But for the residents of Srirampur in Ahmednagar district of Maharashtra, this is not true at all. In their station, one half is named as Srirampur, while the other side is actually named Belapur. So therefore, in documents, they write both names together in order to avoid confusions. Talk about a naming crisis. Another station is Navapur, which is on the border between Maharashtra and Gujarat. One half of the station is in Maharashtra and it follows the rules of trade in Maharashtra, while the other side is in Gujarat and it follows trade rules of Gujarat. So these are the kinds of oddities that we can see across the Indian railways. When you're talking about identification, there is a neat trick that is present across each carriage. Each carriage has 5 numbers and 2 letters painted across it. Amongst the 5 digits, 2 of these would represent the year of manufacturing, and the last 3 digits would represent the number of the carriage present for that particular zone. The zone is represented by the 2 letters or 3 letters painted. So for example, if you have 08321 and SR, then that means the carriage was built in 2008 as the 321st carriage for Southern Railways. So that is this neat trick of identification that you can see all across India, irrespective of places. You can see this across every carriage. In India, the railways is an important provider of employment. but that also means that there's a lot of theft that takes place in its resources. Luckily, the organization has a few tricks up its sleeve. Now, appliances in India work at 220 volts, but if you're taking the appliances in the railway, if you're checking them, you find that they work only at 110 volts. So this trick was used to avoid theft. Another neat way by which they avoid theft is to install narrower spikes and support gauges for the window adjacent to the door. This is to avoid sleight of hand thefts that was common in earlier times. Fuel consciousness is a big part in planning today, and most of the engines and trains around the world are made aerodynamically. But do you know how this trend started? It wasn't started by an electric or diesel engine, but it was started by a steam engine. And this too was also the result of a contest. In the 1930s, the London and Northeastern Railway tasked Sir Nigel Gresley to design a train that will operate faster than cars moving on the route from London to Edinburgh in Scotland. So he worked the train from inside and out, and he found out that wind was an important factor in slowing down trains. Now, he could have used better engines, but that would have burned more coal, and they had an energy crisis. So he decided to solve the problem with respect to wind. And that was when he noticed his friend Ettore Bugatti's race cars. Bugatti's race cars had wedge-shaped noses, which allowed them to slip through the air and move faster. So inspired by these ideas, Gresley, he designed an engine with a wedge-shaped nose and wheel coverings, and he created the A4 Pacific class locomotives. These locomotives were 35 in number, and they served the route from London to Edinburgh in speeds faster than a car could in that day. And so Nigel Gresley was promoted to knighthood at that time, and he also set a world record. In 1938, an engine of his named Mallard streamed, and it went fast towards the then world speed record of 203 kilometers per hour. The record still stands today with respect to steam engines. So the Mallard is even now the world's fastest steam engine. This has been a really long webisode. I feel like winding up. Where would you sleep tonight? Maybe a train isn't a bad idea, you know? The bogies of the Indian railways are designed to oscillate at 1.2 hertz. That's the same frequency as your heart beating, and it's also the resting frequency for humans. So because of that, you're definitely going to feel sleepy. For more of such useful and interesting trivia, look no further. Subscribe to Q Positive. You can also like the video so that you can view it later and also share it to others. So until the next episode of Aadil's Positive Vibes, take care, stay safe, be positive, stay positive, and also Q Positive.